Imagine a world where your very existence is a gamble, and the only thing standing between you and total annihilation isn't a sword or a shield, but a simple game of rock, paper, scissors. Across a vibrant, neon-soaked battlefield, a young girl stares down a literal god, her eyes reflecting the cold calculations of a machine, while her brother smiles with the predatory grin of a man who has already seen the end of the world and found it hilarious. They are standing on the precipice of a reality where cheating is just another word for winning, and the stakes aren't just gold or glory, they are the right to challenge God himself for the throne of the universe. This isn't just a game, it's a desperate struggle for a race on the brink of extinction, led by two siblings who couldn't even handle a trip to the grocery store in their own world. But before the sky turned into a chessboard, and before the rules of physics were replaced by the 10 pledges, there was only a dark, cluttered room and the glowing screens of a legendary urban legend known as Blank. The story takes place in a world that feels like a fever dream of color and high-stakes strategy, but it begins in the suffocating darkness of a modern apartment. Here we meet our protagonists, Sora, an 18-year-old master of social manipulation and strategy, and his 11-year-old sister, Shiro, a literal genius whose brain processes information faster than a supercomputer. Together, they are Blank, an undefeated gaming entity that has conquered every leaderboard in existence. They are the ultimate shut-ins, agoraphobic geniuses who view the real world as nothing more than a trash game with no clear goals and terrible mechanics. To them, reality is a mess of unfair RNG and illogical rules, until a mysterious email arrives that changes everything. A single challenge to a game of online chess from an unknown sender sparks a battle that lasts for hours, pushing both siblings to their absolute limits. When they finally secure a narrow victory, the screen flickers, and a voice asks them a terrifyingly simple question. How would they like to live in a world where everything is decided by games? Without a second thought, they agree, and the floor literally vanishes beneath them. Sora and Shiro find themselves plummeting through a psychedelic sky, falling thousands of feet toward a world that looks like it was painted with a neon brush. As they scream in terror, a small whimsical boy wearing a king's crown floats alongside them. This is Tet, the one true god of the world known as Disboard. As they fall, Tet explains the fundamental law of this land, the 10 pledges. In Disboard, all murder, war, and robbery are strictly forbidden. Every conflict from a border dispute between nations to a simple bar tab must be settled through games. The rules are absolute. You must bet something of equal value, and the loser must follow the terms of the bet, enforced by a magical binding oath. By the time Sora and Shiro slam into the grassy plains below, they realize they aren't in a trash game anymore. They are in a paradise designed specifically for people like them. The transition from the gray reality of Earth to the blinding vibrancy of Disboard is an emotional overload for the siblings. They find themselves in the kingdom of Elkia, the last remaining city of humanity, the human race. In this world, there are 16 sentient races, and humans are ranked dead last because they lack the ability to use magic. They are viewed as nothing more than clever monkeys by the other races, who use their supernatural powers to cheat and dominate. Sora and Shiro quickly realize that the previous king of Elkia has died, leaving a vacuum of power that is currently being contested in a massive gambling tournament. The kingdom is on its last legs, having lost almost all its territory to neighboring magical nations. It's a pathetic sight, but for Sora, it's the perfect underdog story. He doesn't see a dying race. He sees a deck of cards, waiting to be shuffled. The siblings wander into a local tavern, where they witness a high-stakes poker game between a fiery, red-haired girl named Stephanie Dola, the granddaughter of the late king, and a cold, calculating woman named Kurami Zell. Stephanie is playing to reclaim her grandfather's throne, but she is being systematically dismantled. Sora, with his keen eye for human behavior, realizes instantly that Kurami is cheating using elven magic. He watches as Stephanie loses everything, blinded by her own desperation and sense of honor. It's a painful escalation. The pride of the human race is being gambled away in a back-alley pub, and the only people who can see the strings being pulled are two social outcasts who haven't showered in 3 days. Sora decides to intervene, not out of heroism, but because he hates seeing a game played poorly. After the match, Sora confronts Stephanie, but instead of being grateful, she is defensive and heartbroken. To prove a point and secure a place to stay, Sora challenges her to a game of rock, paper, scissors. It seems simple, almost insulting, but Sora turns it into a psychological nightmare. He tells her exactly what he's going to throw, creating a mental loop that leaves Stephanie paralyzed with doubt. If she wins, he promises to tell her how Kurami cheated. If he wins, she has to fall in love with him, a bet he makes mostly to mess with her. The tension spikes as the hand signs are revealed. Sora wins, of course, and the magical power of the pledges kicks in. Stephanie's brain is forced to rewrite itself, making her obsessively, hilariously devoted to a guy she barely knows. It's a comedic moment that masks a darker reality. In Disboard, your very feelings can be used as currency. As the sun sets over the floating islands of Elkia, Sora and Shiro settle into the royal palace, much to the chagrin of the bewitched Stephanie. But there's no time for rest. The coronation of the new king is approaching, and Kurami Zell is poised to take the throne with her magical advantage. Sora realizes that if a puppet of the elves takes over Elkia, humanity is finished. He looks out over the balcony at a world that hates his kind, a world where humans are considered the weakest link in the chain. He turns to Shiro, the fire of 1,000 conquered leaderboards in his eyes. They aren't just here to survive. They are here to rewrite the hierarchy of the universe. The game for the crown hasn't even begun, and Blank has already decided that the throne belongs to them. The question isn't whether they can win, it's how much of the world they'll have to burn down to do it. The grand hall of the Elkia royal palace is suffocatingly silent, a stark contrast to the vibrant chaos of the world outside. All eyes are fixed on the center stage, where the final match for the throne is about to take place. Kurami Zell stands there, radiating an aura of cold, aristocratic superiority, backed by the invisible, cheating hand of her elven accomplice. Opposite her stand two siblings who look like they crawled out of a landfill, Sora and Shiro. The crowd whispers in hushed, mocking tones, convinced that the era of humanity is finally coming to an end. But they don't see what Shiro sees, a complex grid of possibilities where every move is a mathematical certainty. And they definitely don't see what Sora sees, a woman who thinks she's playing chess, while he is playing with her soul. The game is announced, and it isn't the standard chess the siblings expected. This is Grandmaster's chess, where the pieces aren't just plastic carvings, they are living avatars that possess their own will and emotions. The match begins, and Shiro takes the lead, her fingers flying across the board with the precision of a master surgeon. For the first few minutes, it's a slaughter. Shiro's tactical genius is so overwhelming that Kurami's magic-enhanced brain can barely keep up. But then, the escalation hits like a physical blow. Kurami activates a hidden elven spell, and suddenly, the board itself begins to betray Shiro. The chess pieces, granted sentience by the magic, start feeling fear. They look at Shiro's cold, calculated commands, and they see a tyrant who views them as disposable tools. They begin to disobey. A knight refuses to charge into a certain death scenario. A pawn trembles and retreats. Shiro, for the first time in her life, is paralyzed. Her logic, the very foundation of her existence, is useless against the irrationality of a piece that is too scared to move. As Shiro begins to spiral into a panic attack, Sora steps in, his hand steady on her shoulder. He doesn't look at the board, he looks at the pieces. He realizes that Kurami's magic hasn't just given them life, it's given them a desire for self-preservation. While Kurami uses her magic to brainwash her pieces into a fanatical, suicidal frenzy, Sora does something unthinkable. He starts talking to them. He doesn't issue commands, he gives a speech. He speaks to the pieces about the glory of the kingdom, the value of their lives, and the hope of a world where they don't have to die for a crown. It's a psychological masterstroke. He treats the game not as a simulation, but as a revolution. The crowd watches in stunned disbelief as Sora's pieces, inspired by his charisma, begin to fight back with a ferocity that defies all logical strategy. The tension in the room reaches a breaking point when Kurami, desperate and sensing her victory slipping away, uses her ultimate trump card. She sacrifices her own queen to create a magical shockwave that should wipe Sora's board clean. But Sora was 3 steps ahead. He didn't just inspire his pieces, he seduced hers. He points out to Kurami's soldiers that their leader is a tyrant who will discard them the moment they aren't useful. In a shocking twist that flips the entire concept of the game on its head, Kurami's own pieces defect. They turn their blades toward their own king. The game ends not with a checkmate, but with a coup d'etat. Kurami falls to her knees, her elven magic shattered and her pride in ruins. Sora and Shiro stand victorious, the new king and queen of the last human city on Earth. But the victory is hollow if the people don't follow them. The coronation ceremony is held on the palace balcony, overlooking a sea of skeptical, broken-hearted humans who have lost all hope. This is the moment where most leaders would offer empty promises of strength and power. Sora, however, does the exact opposite. He stands before his new subjects and tells them the brutal, ugly truth. Humans are the weakest race in the world. They have no magic, no wings, no super strength, and no longevity. They are, by all accounts, biological accidents in a world of gods. The crowd is horrified, thinking their new king is mocking them. But then Sora's voice drops an octave, becoming heavy with a terrifying kind of pride. He tells them that because they are weak, they had to develop the one thing the superior races never needed: the wisdom to adapt, the cunning to cheat, and the will to survive against impossible odds. "We are the weak," he screams, his voice echoing across the plaza. "And because we are weak, we will slit the throats of the strong." He explains that in a world governed by games, the one who knows they are weak is the one who will never stop looking for an edge. He declares that under his rule, humanity will not just survive, they will reclaim every inch of territory they lost. They will challenge the elves, the warbeasts, and the sirens. They will climb the ranks of the Exceed until they are standing at the very top, looking down at the gods who dared to call them animals. The speech is an emotional wildfire, igniting a spark of defiance in the hearts of thousands. For the first time in centuries, the people of Elkia don't feel like victims, they feel like players. As the cheers of the crowd roar like thunder, Sora and Shiro retreat back into the palace, the weight of their new titles finally sinking in. They are now responsible for an entire race, and their resources are pathetic. They have no money, no information, and most importantly, they have no books. The late king, in his desperation, gambled away the National Library to a member of the Flugel, a race of angelic, god-killing war machines. Sora knows that knowledge is the ultimate currency in Disboard. If they want to challenge the world, they need that library back. But the Flugel are not like the humans or even the elves. They are creatures of pure power who live for the thrill of the hunt. Sora looks at the map of the world, his mind already spinning 1,000 different schemes. He knows that to win the library back, they won't just be playing a game. They'll be walking into the lion's den. He turns to Shiro, who is already calculating the atmospheric pressure and light refraction of their next destination. They aren't scared. In fact, for the first time since arriving in this world, they are truly having fun. The hunt for the library of the wings is on, and the siblings are about to find out that when you bet against a godslayer, the price of losing is your very soul. They leave the safety of the throne room behind, heading toward a confrontation that will determine if the weak truly have what it takes to outsmart the divine. To win a war against the world, you first need to know what the world is made of. Sora and Shiro quickly realize that their biggest obstacle isn't just magic, it's ignorance. The late king of Elkia wasn't just a gambler. He was a desperate man who lost the nation's greatest treasure, the royal library. It was claimed by a member of the Flugel, a race of winged, angelic beings who were literally engineered by an ancient god to be the ultimate weapons of mass destruction. In Disboard, knowledge is more than just power. It's the only currency that matters to a race that has lived for thousands of years. If the siblings want to uncover the secrets of the other 15 races, they have to walk into the lion's den and take that library back. But the Flugel aren't just librarians. They are godslayers who find the concept of a human winning a game about as likely as a grain of sand winning a fight against the ocean. As Sora, Shiro, and a perpetually stressed Stephanie Dola approach the massive floating structure that serves as the library, the air itself feels heavy with ancient, lethal energy. They are greeted by Jibril, a creature of breathtaking beauty and terrifying intensity. Her eyes glow with a cold, predatory intelligence, and her halo hums with the power to level entire cities. To Jibril, humans are immanity, the lowest of the low, barely worth her time. But Sora knows how to talk to an obsessive mind. He offers her a wager she cannot refuse. He bets Shiro's tablet, a device containing 40,000 books from a world Jibril has never even dreamed of. The sight of this infinite knowledge sends Jibril into a state of literal ecstasy. She agrees to the game, betting the library and her own soul on the outcome. The game of choice? Materialization Shiratori. This isn't the simple word game you played as a kid. In this version, if you say a word and that object is present in the room, it disappears. If it's not present, it manifests out of thin air. The catch? You can't use the same word twice, and if you can't think of a word, you lose. It sounds straightforward, until Sora and Shiro realize they are playing against a living encyclopedia. Jibril begins by removing the floor, then the walls, and then the very concept of clothing, a move Sora clearly enjoys a bit too much. But the game quickly escalates from comedic to apocalyptic. Jibril isn't just playing to win. She's playing to test the limits of these monkeys. She begins summoning celestial bodies and cosmic horrors, turning the game arena into a chaotic, shifting dimension where reality itself is a weapon. The tension spikes when Shiro, the mathematical engine of the duo, realizes the terrifying scale of the trap Jibril is setting. The flugel is removing the fundamental building blocks of life. With a single word, Jibril removes oxygen. Suddenly, the room becomes a vacuum. Stephanie gasps for air, her lungs burning, while Sora and Shiro struggle to maintain their focus. But Sora isn't panicked. He's smiling. He realizes that Jibril, despite her thousands of years of life, doesn't understand the science of their world. She knows magic, but she doesn't know physics. Sora begins a counterattack using words that Jibril has never heard, scientific concepts like Coulomb force and atmospheric pressure. He isn't just trying to survive, he is rewriting the laws of the universe under her very nose. The escalation reaches a fever pitch as the arena transforms into a literal supernova. Sora uses the word atmosphere to remove the protective layer of the world, exposing them to the lethal vacuum of space. As they float in the void, skin burning and eyes bulging from the pressure, Jibril is certain she has won. She believes that as a magical being, she can survive longer than any human. But she underestimated the weakness Sora preached about earlier. He knew exactly how long a human could last, and he knew exactly how a flugel's brain would react to a logical paradox. He waits until the very last second, when Jibril is distracted by her own triumph, and utters a word that resets the board in a way she never saw coming. He targets the Spiritans, the very source of magic in Disboard. By removing the foundation of her power, he leaves her as vulnerable as any human. The final blow is a masterclass in psychological warfare. Sora uses the word lithium followed by oxygen to create a localized chemical explosion that mimics the power of a star. In the blinding light of the blast, Jibril realizes the truth. She didn't lose because she was weak. She lost because she was too strong to ever imagine she could be outsmarted. The game ends with the once mighty angel pinned to the ground, gasping for air, her pride shattered more thoroughly than the library walls. As the dust settles, Jibril undergoes a radical transformation. She doesn't just accept defeat, she becomes obsessed with the siblings. In her eyes, Sora and Shiro are no longer monkeys. They are something higher, something divine creatures who can manipulate reality through pure intellect. She pledges her absolute loyalty to them, becoming their most powerful and most eccentric servant. With the library back in their possession and a godslayer at their side, the siblings finally have the information they need to target their next opponent. But the celebration is short-lived. Jibril reveals the truth about their next target: the Eastern Federation, home of the warbeasts. The warbeasts are a race of animal-eared humans with superhuman physical abilities and a sixth sense that is indistinguishable from precognition. They have never lost a game in decades, and their games are shrouded in total mystery because anyone who plays them has their memory wiped. Sora realizes that they are about to step into a digital battlefield where their enemy can literally see the future. He looks at his sister, and for the first time, there's a flicker of genuine uncertainty in his eyes. They've conquered an angel, but can they win a game against an opponent who knows their moves before they even make them? The siblings prepare to cross the border into the territory of the beasts, knowing that one wrong step won't just cost them the game, it will cost them their minds. Sora stands before the massive map of Disboard, plotting the impossible. The Eastern Federation is a black box of fear and mystery. Everyone who challenges the warbeasts loses not just their territory, but their memories of the game itself. It is an airtight defense, making the animal-eared nation practically invincible because their opponents can never learn from their mistakes. But Sora, staring at the borders of the shattered human kingdom, realizes something chilling. The previous king of Elkia, the man everyone called a foolish, desperate gambler, wasn't a fool at all. He didn't lose his lands in drunken stupors. He sacrificed them piece by piece to test the warbeast's defenses. He was a scout who died sending a message to the future, hiding the true nature of their enemy in plain sight. The warbeasts aren't using magic to read minds. They are using hyper-advanced technology, a video game, and relying on their animalistic senses to read heart rates, sweat, and micro-expressions. It is cold reading on a biological level. But knowing the trick isn't enough to beat them. Sora needs allies to exploit it. He needs the very person he dethroned. He summons Kuramizel and her elven partner, Phil, to the palace. The tension in the room is razor-sharp. Kurami still believes humanity is doomed, viewing Sora's ambition to conquer the world as a suicidal delusion. To convince her, Sora doesn't just ask for her help, he wagers his very soul. He challenges her to a game of Othello, but in the twisted reality of Disboard, nothing is ever just a board game. The wager is their very existence. The pieces on the board aren't just black and white discs. They represent the abstract concepts that make up the players themselves. Their memories, their bodies, their right to exist in the universe. Every flipped piece literally strips away a part of who they are. If Sora loses, he won't just die. He will be erased from history as if he never existed at all. It is a gamble so insanely high that even the Godslayer Jibril watches in stunned, unblinking silence. The match begins, and almost immediately, the horror of the wager becomes a physical reality. As Kurami flips one of Sora's pieces, his right arm simply vanishes into thin air. He doesn't bleed, he just ceases to be whole. The psychological terror escalates with every turn. Sora loses his sense of touch, his vision in one eye, his memories of Earth. He is being systematically dismantled, erased piece by piece, while Kurami watches in horrified fascination. She is trying to break his spirit, but Sora keeps smiling, moving his remaining pieces with the eerie calm of a man who has already calculated the exact moment of his death. He isn't playing to dominate the board. He is playing to create a specific, hidden pattern, a trap that only one person in the universe can spring. But to set that trap, he has to sacrifice his most vital piece, his presence in his sister's mind. With a definitive clack, Kurami captures a critical piece, and Sora vanishes completely. The room falls dead silent. The physical body of the human king is gone, but the true nightmare is what happens next. Shiro blinks, looking around the room, a profound emptiness washing over her. She looks at Stephanie, at Jibril, but neither of them remembers Sora. To them, Shiro has always been the sole ruler of Elkia. The very concept of her brother has been wiped from the fabric of reality. Shiro is entirely alone, surrounded by strangers in a terrifying world, her mind fracturing under the weight of an invisible loss. She knows something is wrong, a phantom pain in her chest, a missing variable in the equation of her life. She looks down at the half-finished Othello board, the pieces arranged in a seemingly chaotic, nonsensical mess. The pressure is suffocating. Shiro's breathing becomes ragged as she desperately tries to calculate the impossible. And then, through the fog of erased memories, she sees it. The remaining pieces on the board aren't random. They are a mathematical SOS. They form a sequence, a linguistic puzzle designed specifically for her genius brain to decode. She realizes that blank never loses, and if she is half of blank, the other half must be out there, waiting for her to make the winning move. With trembling fingers, Shiro places the final piece, exactly where her invisible brother orchestrated it to go. The trap snaps shut. The board flips in a cascade of blinding light. Sora instantly materializes back into reality, gasping for breath but wearing his signature predatory grin. He didn't just beat Kurami, he shared his entire consciousness with her through the game. As Kurami's mind links with his, she feels the crushing weight of his life, the trauma of his past on Earth, and the unyielding, terrifying hope he has for humanity. Finally understanding that blank isn't just a pair of gamers. They are a force of nature, an unstoppable intellect driven by pure willpower. The stage is perfectly set. Their alliance is forged in the fire of shared memories, and the warbeasts are officially out of time. Armed with the ultimate trump card of shared consciousness and a literal angel as their bodyguard, Sora and Shiro march into the lavish, imposing embassy of the Eastern Federation. The air inside is thick with the scent of incense and an unspoken predatory confidence. They are greeted by Ino Hatsuse, a towering, stoic warbeast diplomat who looks at the human monarchs as if they are already dead, and his granddaughter, Izuna, a deceptively adorable child whose animalistic eyes track their every micro-movement. The warbeasts are absolutely certain of their invincibility. After all, their video game arena wipes the memories of all challengers, ensuring their strategies remain a perfect, impenetrable secret. But Sora doesn't just want to challenge them to a simple border dispute. He wants to shatter their entire national identity. With a twisted, manic grin that makes even the veteran diplomat flinch, Sora reaches into his pocket and places the literal race piece of humanity on the table. He is wagering the sovereign rights, the freedom, and the very biological sentience of the entire human race. If he loses, every human on the planet will be stripped of their rights and reduced to livestock. The sheer suicidal magnitude of the bet sends a shockwave of absolute terror through Stephanie and the rest of the kingdom. But to the warbeasts, it is an irresistible feast. The terms are struck, the oaths are sworn, and the floor drops out from under them. When Sora and Shiro open their eyes, they aren't standing in a magical forest or a floating coliseum. They are standing in the middle of a hyper-realistic, neon-drenched metropolis composed of towering skyscrapers, paved roads, and flashing billboards. It is a perfect, flawless replica of modern-day Tokyo. For any other inhabitant of Disboard, this would just be a bizarre, complex labyrinth of concrete and glass. But for Blank, it is a psychological gut punch of epic proportions. This is the trash game they spent their entire lives running away from. It is the world of their trauma, their paralyzing agoraphobia, and their crushing social isolation. The sheer sight of the sprawling city streets triggers an immediate, visceral panic in both siblings. Their breathing grows erratic, the color drains from their faces, and the crippling fear of the outside world threatens to paralyze them before the match even begins. But the countdown timer in the sky doesn't care about their trauma. The rules of the game echo across the empty city. It is a virtual reality, first-person shooter. But instead of lethal bullets, their weapons fire beams of concentrated magical energy. If you get shot, your avatar doesn't die. Your mind is instantly rewritten, forcing you to fall hopelessly, obsessively in love with the enemy and become their puppet. The match begins, and the concrete jungle instantly erupts into a high-speed, three-dimensional war zone. Shiro, fighting through her mounting panic, falls back on the only thing she trusts: raw mathematics. She calculates wind resistance, bullet drop, the game engine's gravitational physics, and the exact trajectory of her beams. She becomes a living, breathing aimbot, firing shots with a terrifying, impossible precision that should guarantee an instant victory. But the warbeasts aren't playing by the rules of physics. Izuna erupts from the alleyways like a supernatural blur. She doesn't just run, she defies gravity, ricocheting off the glass facades of skyscrapers, parkouring across falling debris, and moving at a speed that the human eye simply cannot track. Shiro fires a perfectly calculated shot, a bullet destined to hit dead center, but Izuna literally dodges the beam after it has been fired. Her animalistic sixth sense allows her to read the killing intent in the air, reacting to the future before it even happens. It is the equivalent of playing a competitive shooter against an opponent using an invincibility hack. Every trap Blank sets is shattered by pure, unadulterated biological superiority. The terrifying escalation reaches its peak when Izuna manages to do the one thing no opponent has ever successfully done. She separates Blank. Through a series of blindingly fast maneuvers, she forces Sora to dive down a subway stairwell while isolating Shiro on the street level. The moment the physical connection between the siblings is broken, Shiro's mind shatters. The mathematical genius, the untouchable queen of the gaming world, is suddenly just a terrified 11-year-old girl standing alone in the middle of a massive hostile city. The crippling agoraphobia takes over entirely. She drops to her knees, her hyper-calculating brain short-circuiting under the sheer weight of being utterly alone in the one place she fears most. High above her, Izuna perches on a street lamp, her weapon aimed directly at the trembling girl's back. The warbeast prepares to pull the trigger, confident that she has just broken the unbreakable duo. But Izuna makes a fatal miscalculation. She assumes that Blank's strength comes from their combined presence, not realizing that their separation was a chaotic variable Sora had already factored into his desperate mental equation. Just as the lethal beam of light erupts from Izuna's weapon, Sora bursts from the underground, utilizing the very physics of the game engine he spent the last 10 minutes secretly testing. He doesn't fire his weapon at Izuna. He fires it at the environment, causing a localized explosion of virtual debris that intercepts the shot by a fraction of a millimeter. He grabs Shiro, pulling her back from the brink of a total mental collapse, his eyes burning with a terrifying realization. They cannot win this game by playing it as a shooter. Their enemy is too fast, too strong, and too instinctual. If they want to survive, they have to stop trying to shoot the target and start manipulating the very code of the world around them. They retreat into the shadows of the concrete labyrinth, bruised, terrified, but fundamentally transformed. The hunt has changed, and Blank is about to show the warbeasts what happens when you force a pair of cornered geniuses to rewrite the rules of reality itself. The virtual city of Tokyo, once a playground of neon lights and high-speed maneuvers, suddenly feels like a tomb. Izuna, pushed into a corner by the siblings' impossible adaptability, drops her playful facade. Her eyes burn with a lethal crimson intensity, and her fur bristles as she activates her ultimate trump card, blood destruction. This isn't just a combat mode, it is a terrifying, physiological overclocking of her warbeast body. Her physical stats skyrocket to levels that defy the game's own engine, allowing her to move with such blinding speed that she creates after images, effectively turning herself into an army of one. The reaction from the siblings is instant and primal. Terror. They are witnessing a predator that has stripped away all limitations. Izuna begins a relentless, synchronized assault, her beams of light carving through the buildings like butter, forcing Sora and Shiro into a desperate, retreating scramble. The escalation is absolute. There is nowhere to run, no wall to hide behind, and every millisecond of hesitation is an invitation to be wiped from the game. Sora's mind is racing, his thoughts fracturing under the pressure of the absolute destruction being rained down upon them. He knows they cannot outrun her, and they certainly cannot outshoot her. He looks at his shaking hands, then at Shiro, who is staring at the incoming barrage with a haunting, analytical silence. In that moment of near-death clarity, it hits him. The game is a trap, but the trap isn't just the mechanics, it's the player's psychology. The warbeasts rely on their superior senses to predict the future, essentially reading the intent of their opponents. They aren't predicting the game, they are predicting the player. Sora realizes that to win, they have to stop acting like players and start acting like something else entirely. He makes an insane split-second decision that could end their lives. He stops trying to dodge. He leans into the fire. As Izuna closes in for the kill, expecting the usual frantic evasion, Sora does the unthinkable. He doesn't move. He stands his ground, his eyes locked onto Izuna's with an unnerving, wide-eyed grin. He isn't fighting, he's baiting. He knows the game's penalty system. If you shoot a player, they fall in love and become your puppet. But he has spent the last several minutes analyzing the code, not just the gameplay. He realizes the love mechanic is a status effect, and status effects can be stacked, glitched, and manipulated. By intentionally allowing himself to be hit, he isn't just losing, he's creating a feedback loop. He forces Izuna into a situation where her perfect instincts are flooded with conflicting data. She is caught in a moment of pure confusion. Her prey is acting in a way that is mathematically impossible and strategically suicidal. That hesitation, that fraction of a second of doubt, is all the opening Shiro needs. Shiro, already anticipating Sora's madness, has been pre-calculating the trajectory of the environmental collapse Sora triggered. As Izuna hesitates, Shiro fires not at Izuna, but at the structural support of the skyscraper hanging directly above them. The building gives way in a deafening roar of concrete and glass. It is a calculated demolition, not a tactical strike. Izuna, caught in the chaos of her own overwhelming power and the unexpected collapse, is pinned down. The game engine, struggling to process the interaction between the love status effect, the destruction of the map, and the sheer velocity of the collapsing debris, begins to glitch. For the first time in her life, the undefeated warbeast loses her footing. The game registers a checkmate, not by skill, but by an exploit of the rules that no one else in history had the audacity to execute. When the dust settles and the virtual reality dissolves, they are back in the real world, the atmosphere tense and suffocating. The warbeasts are reeling, their invincibility shattered, their nation's secret laid bare. Izuna, exhausted and trembling, stares at Sora, her mind a mix of shock and reluctant admiration. She wasn't beaten by a better warrior. She was outplayed by a human who treated a godlike challenge as a messy, exploitable piece of software. In the aftermath, the rigid hierarchy of the Eastern Federation begins to crumble. The warbeasts, who have always been defined by their power, are forced to reckon with a race of weaklings who just dismantled their entire culture without firing a single lethal shot. It is a moment of profound, quiet victory. The siblings have done the impossible. They have unified the Eastern Federation with Elkia, effectively doubling their territory and resources. But the win is bittersweet. As they stand amidst the wreckage of their own victory, Sora and Shiro look out at the horizon, the weight of their new kingdom pressing down on them. They have unified the humans and the beastkin, but this is only the beginning. They have proven that they can challenge the world, but they know exactly who is watching. The game wasn't just about territory. It was a broadcast to the entire world and to the beings above it. The old Deus, the creator of the rules, the one who brought them to this world, is watching them with a hungry, playful interest. Sora turns to Shiro, the adrenaline fading, replaced by a cold, calculating determination. The world has been warned, Blank has arrived, and they have no intention of stopping until they reach the throne of the universe itself. The game of survival is over. The game of conquest has just begun. If you felt the adrenaline of those high-stakes games, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps the algorithm know you're a true player in this community. We're deep diving into the best anime and manhwa stories out there, and I want to know, what series do you want to see broken down next? Is there a hidden gem you're dying for me to cover, or a massive epic you want summarized with this same intensity? Drop your suggestions in the comments below, and I'll be reading every single one to decide our next adventure. The world is a game, and the board is constantly changing. But remember, the moment you stop playing is the moment you've already lost. We'll be right here, waiting for the next move. Until then, keep your eyes on the board and your strategies ready. Because in this world, the next game might be the one that changes everything. Are you ready to take the first turn?